Hey, I'm Muzz, and I don't make videos, so this is gonna be pretty nasty and low quality, but it's basically my duty at this point to make this, so yeah. This is a video about the three small Bowsers of Nintendo. Bowser Jr., Baby Bowser, and Koopa Kid. This is gonna be strangely, in-depth, like more than you'd expect, I suppose, but I hope it'll be informative. So this is some mod I made in 2019 because I have so much love for all three of these guys, but it's a shame that people sometimes can't tell the difference. I'm here to educate you on those differences, but also validate you because it gets kind of messy. So to begin, I'm going to go over the history regarding each small Bowser while analyzing their design changes. First, I'm going to talk about Bowser, just to start us off. He of course first appeared in Super Mario Bros., continuing to serve as a main antagonist in Mario 3 and World. His design underwent a good few changes over that time period, but by Mario World was beginning to become solidified. This is when a nice little game called Yoshi's Island comes about, a game where Yoshi and Mario have to save Luigi from Bowser. Well, specifically, Yoshi and Baby Mario have to save Baby Luigi from Baby Bowser. Yoshi's Island takes place a long time before Super Mario Bros., Super Mario Bros. 3, and Super Mario World. As such, Mario, his brother, and the soon-to-be antagonist, Bowser, are all infants. As the story goes, the stork is delivering Mario and Luigi to their parents when they are suddenly attacked by some of Bowser's cohorts. The two baby brothers are separated, Mario falls down into a wooden area on the island, where he's found by Yoshi, whereas Luigi ends up in Bowser's castle someplace else on the island. Now, time for a little disclaimer. While Mario, Luigi, Peach, Bowser, and every other Mario baby out there could be considered separate characters to their adult counterparts thanks to the sports games and spin offs, Mario and Luigi Partners in Time for the DS makes it glaringly obvious that Baby Mario is still Mario, Baby Luigi is still Luigi, and Baby Bowser is still Bowser. The whole premise of that game is based around time travel, and while I'll talk about it a bit more later, they are absolutely still the same characters, just younger. So, Baby Bowser's relation to Bowser is that he is simply Bowser as a young child. So let's talk a little bit more about Baby Bowser and his design since Yoshi's Island. So, here I've created timelines for each small Bowser, and a combined timeline that shows when they coexisted. Since I'm starting with Baby Bowser, here's his. I'm going to talk about each iteration in order, so strap in. Baby Bowser's first official appearance was this, and as you can see, sort of set the precedent for how all future small Bowsers would look. His design generally stayed the same, but I have some big notes to make when we talk about Bowser Jr. later on. So yeah. Here his nose is really pale and long. The pale skin tone color wasn't actually in the game, it was more of an orangey yellow there. He has one single fang, stubby spikes on his shell, and an orange skin tone, much like the older version of him did around the same time. His hair is tied into a ponytail, which is something else that stuck. Something that's notable about this design is that his eyebrows closely resemble older Bowser, and that they actually have 3 points that are angled the same way. He has no head spikes at all and wears studded bracelets on his wrists and neck. And yeah, there is one around his neck, in the game at least. Maybe not in this art, I think his arms are covering it, but in the game he does have one. Speaking of which, here's a comparison between his official art and his in-game appearance in both Yoshi's Island on the top and Yoshi's Island DS on the bottom. I'll talk more about Yoshi's Island DS in just a bit, but keep this in mind. Baby Bowser's next appearance after Yoshi's Island was 2 to 3 years later, depending on where you live, in Yoshi's Story for the Nintendo 64. His design hardly changed. There isn't really much to talk about because of that, but I will say that his trophy from Super Smash Bros. Melee closely resembles this design, which is very interesting. Baby Bowser didn't appear again until 2005 in Mario & Luigi Partners in Time. In this game, his design changed a lot compared to Yoshi's Island and Story. I mean, just look at him. The reason for this is probably pretty obvious. In 2002, just 2 years before Partners in Time, Super Mario Sunshine was released, and it was the debut of Bowser's son, Bowser Jr. I don't know if the designers got confused between the two or what, but I think they probably wanted to merge the designs a bit. Unfortunately, this just ended up making things more confusing, and might have been the catalyst for everyone confusing the two. This is where I'll start talking about Bowser Jr.'s design, and then we can compare the two. So, here's the boy himself. This is his trophy from Melee, by the way. Compared to Baby Bowser in Yoshi's Island, his eyebrows are angled differently, and they only have 2 points. He has some stubby, tiny head spikes, he wears bracelets, but they aren't studded, and they are only on his wrists. Instead of having one around his neck, he instead wears a white bandana with a scary mouth design. His skin is yellow, as was Bowser's in this time period, and has been ever since. So, now let's compare these to Baby Bowser's appearance in Partners in Time. It's weird how different this is to Baby Bowser's original design, right? No wonder it's so confusing which is which. He has the same exact eyebrows as Bowser Jr. now, he lost the studs on his bracelets and around his neck, and in case that wasn't confusing enough, even gained a white bandana. This one doesn't even have a pattern on it, which makes me wonder why he has it at all, but yeah, it's pretty bleak. I still love him a lot in this game, and they go to a great extent of making Bowser and his past self interact, making sure you know it's Bowser as a baby, and like maybe that's why he looks so much like Bowser/Bowser Jr.? I don't know, but it's annoying, honestly. And now here's where things get kind of interesting. The very next year, Yoshi's Island DS was released, and this game was pretty big for Baby Bowser because he was playable this time. Or, well, he was one of the 5 babies Yoshi could carry through the levels. His ability was breathing fire in place of Yoshi using his tongue, and while he was only playable for just a few levels, it was awesome. What's notable here is his design, though. Obviously, it seems like they actually wanted to go back to the original design and, like, modernize it a little bit, and I kinda love it. Here he has a yellowish snout, lost the bandana from Partners in Time, thank god, and is just generally tinier again. His eyebrows are now angled correctly again, his bracelets are no longer studded, which admittedly makes me a little sad, but whatever, and he still doesn't have one around his neck. For the record, they also had this design in Yoshi Touch and Go in 2005, but he only makes a very, very brief cameo, so it's sort of hard to compare. And then, they made another mistake. Yoshi's New Island. They made him look exactly the same as Bowser Jr. Literally exactly the same, minus the bandana. His official artwork doesn't really reflect this, but just look at his design in game. It's practically identical. And if New Island wasn't abhorrent enough, it also ruined my boy. They did it again in Yoshi's Crafted World, and honestly, I've just given up. They were so close to perfecting his design in DS that they were just different enough to be forgivable. Probably assisted by the limited pixel art, but as soon as New Island hit, that was ruined forever. His neon look in Yoshi's Woolly World was really cute, but it's hard to compare it to either design because the nature of that style. It's so good on its own and I like it, but New Island and Crafted World committed unforgivable sins. It's no wonder my friends call me Muzz. There's literally no difference between Baby Bowser and Bowser Jr. Please shut up. Because, well, that barely is a difference anymore. I understand it's likely for brand purposes, but as someone who's really passionate about these characters, it makes me seriously salty. So now that I've ranted all about Baby Bowser, I want to talk about Bowser Jr. just a little bit more before I dive into Koopa Kid. Here's the timeline I made for him. You'll notice I chose to only include the mainline games alongside the Mario Party games, and that's because Bowser Jr. appears in a lot of the spin-offs throughout the GameCube and Wii era, and there's not much point focusing on them, so here you'll see that after Bowser Jr.'s debut in 2002, he appeared pretty consistently throughout the mainline Mario games, as well as every new Super Mario Bros. Game and a lot of the sports games. At the time he debuted, Mario Party 4 was also released. You'll notice, however, that Bowser Jr. did not actually appear in a Mario Party game until DS in 2007, despite being in pretty much every sports game in that time period. So, why is that? Well, it's because of Koopa Kid. Now, try to stick with me here because there are a few dates and names and it might get a little confusing. Well, it will get a little confusing. Here's the timeline I made for Koopa Kid, so hopefully you can keep up a little bit easier. Koopa Kid was a cohort or minion of Bowser's. He's presumably not actually related to Bowser, but more on that later. He was created assumedly by Hudson Soft, which was the company that created the first 8 console Mario Party games as spin-offs. So why is that notable? Well, it's because after Mario Party Advance in 2005, Koopa Kid never appeared again. In 2012, Hudson went defunct, which was also the same year ND Cube took over the series and Mario Party 9 was released. Koopa Kid died with Hudson, but his lifespan truly ended in 2005. Now, a bit more about the character and his design. We'll revisit the timeline again in just a second. Koopa Kid actually has another name, which is Mini Bowser in the PAL region of Mario Party 4-7. In case you're not confused enough yet, his name is Baby Bowser in Mario Party 1-3, but he's not related to the actual Baby Bowser or Bowser, and for the sake of the whole conversation, I'm going to assume that that is just a beta name and design of Koopa Kid. Oh, and also in the US version of Mario Party 5's manual, he's mistakenly called Bowser Jr. Honestly, I'm just going to smile and blame Nintendo for making them all look so similar. Isn't that just so fun and cool and not infuriating at all? I'm really enjoying this, I promise, I swear. Anyway, Koopa Kid is actually quite a lot different in terms of design. Funnily enough, he resembles Bowser far more than his son or even his own past self. His eyebrows match Bowser's as well as Baby Bowser's original design, and he has huge horns just like Bowser. He has 2 spiked bracelets on each arm and one around his neck just like Bowser. He never wore a bandana throughout his whole lifespan. His hair also pretty much matches Bowser's. He has a huge nose, probably to make room for that big set of teeth. He's the only small Bowser that does not have one single fang. Also, his voice is entirely different, and I know I haven't mentioned the voices before now, but I thought his was noteworthy. That about covers the design though. It's strange how similar and yet so different the 3 of them are. Now for some more fun facts and confusion. Remember how I said earlier that he's presumably not related to Bowser? Well, I don't think he is, but I do think Hudson got a little confused between him and Bowser Jr. for a bit. In Mario Party 4, the same year Sunshine was released and Jr. made his debut, Koopa Kid actually refers to Bowser as dad, and again in Mario Party 7, Bowser refers to him as son. I really truly don't think this means anything. I fully believe this was just a mistake as a result of confusion on their ends. I suppose it's up to you if it's canon or not, but Bowser Jr. is usually referred to as being Bowser's only son, so food for thought. There are also 3 separate different colored variants of Koopa Kid serving as antagonists in 5 and 6, since Koopa Kid himself is playable in those games, so you decide how you feel about it. I'm just gonna keep saying that minions of Bowser and nothing more. What's funny about Koopa Kid, and I mentioned this briefly earlier, is that he does predate Bowser Jr. He made his first appearance in Mario Party 1 back in 1999. In the first 3 games, he was called Baby Bowser, and in the first game, there were many Baby Bowsers on the Eternal Starboard. Ugh, I really do think that this is still Koopa Kid and not actually Baby Bowser because the design is almost identical, and he's treated the same way by Bowser himself. Seems the guys behind this realized that this was a problem after the 3rd game and started to refer to him as Koopa Kid in Mario Party 4 onwards. Now, 2005, Mario Party 7 and Advance. These games were Koopa Kid's final appearances ever. He did not appear in Mario Party DS, instead replaced by Bowser Jr. Neither of them appeared in 8, but by 9, Koopa Kid was entirely abandoned alongside Hudson itself. Bowser Jr. had replaced him, and in case that didn't burn hard enough, in the Mario Party Top 100 minigames, Bowser Jr. appears where Koopa Kid would have. He's gone forever, we will probably never see him again, but I still love him and will always appreciate his existence no matter how confusing he was. Thank you, Hudson, for giving me another small Bowser to love with all my heart. Phew, can you believe how convoluted all of that is? I didn't realize how much I was in for when I was making this video, but I knew I needed to make it after trying and failing to explain the differences to all of my non-believer friends. So, here's a combined timeline I made for all 3 characters to show how they coexisted and how the designs were altered alongside each other. I might be the only person in the world who finds this genuinely interesting, but I guess if you're still watching, you must have some degree of interest as well. I hope you enjoyed listening to my dumb rambles about something I love so much. I'll leave my sources for everything in the description, and I want to thank a few people, but stick around until the end because I have somewhat of a Bowser Jr. mystery to leave you guys with. So first of all, big thanks to my friend Jasper for helping me structure this monster and for all of the tips and general encouragement. I honestly don't think I would have gone through all of this without them. Please check out their channel if you haven't already. They make awesome videos detailing design in Mario games and I've learned a ton from them. Thanks to my buddy Red for some of the Japanese translation help, and thanks to all my friends who pushed and encouraged me to make this video. And of course, thank you for watching. I don't know if I'll ever make a video again, but thank you from the bottom of my heart for watching. I really appreciate it. So, finally, I have a very interesting mystery I want to end off with. In 2018, a remake of Mario & Luigi Bowser's Inside Story was announced for the Nintendo 3DS, and with it came a cute little side mode called Bowser Jr.'s Journey. The interesting thing here was the initial trailer for the game. In this first trailer, Bowser Jr. was shown riding on a huge rolling blobified Goomba. In this scene, Bowser Jr. does not have his signature bandana that he has always had ever since his debut. As soon as I saw this, I was immediately interested. I was like, is this gonna be a story thing? Did he lose it? Is this a story of how he got it? What the heck? But when the game was released, it'd been fixed. He had the bandana for the final game. So, was this a mistake? Did they confuse Bowser Jr. with Baby Bowser because of Yoshi's New Island and Crafted World? Or was this simply a limitation they were having trouble fixing in time for the trailer? Who knows? Please let me know what your theories are, I'd really love to know. Thanks so much again for watching. If you want to see me rave about small Bowsers all day, check out my Twitter at MuzYoshi, where I also post art regularly. I really had fun making this. I don't know if it's anything I'll do again because I don't know how to make videos. You can tell this is very sloppily thrown together, but you know, it was fun. So yeah, thanks again. I love you all. See you later.